Good evening, Zimbabweans. How are you doing? I want to talk about preeminent people, civil society, who feel that they need to have a say in how the country is run. Specifically, I have in mind a man called Professor Ibo Mandaza. Apparently, he gave a talk in OR Tambo talk recently, and in that talk, he expressed an opinion that a transitional government made up of people who are not elected, that includes people who are not elected. Let me make that clear. These people are not elected, but are preeminent in civil society. And I guess Professor Mandaza is alluding to people like himself, people who are well known, who have got brand power, who are talked about, who publish articles, who write magazines. I was a fan of his magazine for a long time, since the early 2000s, late 90s, in fact. He used to publish a magazine, I think, with an organization called SAPES. And I read that magazine. That was before the internet was widely available. I read that magazine frequently. I tried to, I think I even once subscribed to that magazine. So I do not hate Professor Ibo Mandaza. I like his opinion. But unfortunately, my opinion right now is not in his favor, because his sentiment that people who are not elected should be allowed or should be included in what he calls a transitional government is simply a back door for people like himself to get their hands on government power. That's all that he's trying to talk about. It's a back door for people who do not have the ability to campaign successfully to the Zimbabwean electorate to get their hands on power. That is all he's talking about. He's not talking about anything or free and fair elections, because I'm not going to discuss the technicalities of Zimbabwe's elections now myself, but I know Zimbabwe's elections are some of the most tightly monitored in the region, if not the world, such that it's very difficult to play any tricks. Yes, you can talk about intimidation, you can talk about all sorts of pre-election shenanigans, but you cannot say the elections are not properly run. You cannot blame ZEC. The people like to blame ZEC because their candidates do not win, but I do not blame ZEC for anything. And Professor Ibo Mandaza's sentiment is basically to try and get people like himself into power through the back door, if they think their opinion is valued by Zimbabweans. Let me talk about one of his colleagues, Professor Ibo Mandaza. There is a man called Lovemore Matuku. I'm sure you know that man, Lovemore Matuku. He has got an organization called the National Constitutional Assembly, or some National Constitutional Alliance. I forget the proper name, but it's NCA. Before he got into politics, before he tried campaigning, he was also one of the people that claimed people like him were needed for Zimbabwe to come up with a proper constitution. That was Lovemore Matuku's claim, that people like him were very, very important and should be part of transitional governments, like just the same like Professor Ibo Mandaza is doing. But this time around, Lovemore Maduku campaigned. Lovemore Maduku campaigned. And how many votes did you get? I think he was last in the list of 11 presidential candidates. He was beaten by villagers, people who do not. So, you academics, stop taking the people of Zimbabwe for fools. Stop this superiorist or supremacist mentality that because you are academics, then you need to tell the ordinary people of Zimbabwe how they should vote or how they should be governed. I will tell you, the rural villagers up there know how they should be governed and they've got their interests. They are not concerned about your academic papers that you seek to be published in London. So please, Professor Ibo Mandaza, your transitional government is not a big deal for you to get into government. If you think your ideas are so much loved by Zimbabweans, go and campaign like Lovemore Maduku. Tuone kuti munowana mavhotsi mangani, Professor.